Fellas, welcome to the video. Today I'll be discussing Star Wars Jedi Survivor, the anticipated sequel to Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, released in 2019. Now before we get into this, I wanted to just say this video is a review. I'll be sharing some of my thoughts while playing the game, and I'll be giving my impressions on its gameplay, characters, and story, some of which may be very controversial compared to what I've heard others say about this game. As a warning, there will be spoilers. So, Jedi Survivor picks up 5 years after the events of Fallen Order, with Cal Kestis still on the run from the Galactic Empire. He is joined by his friends Seajunda, Grease, Dridus, and Night Sister Merrin, with a new addition of Bode Akuna. If you saw any pre-release news, Survivor was said to be much better than its predecessor, and build on the gameplay, functions, and story of Fallen Order in a positive way and a natural step up. While I enjoyed the first game, I was skeptical that the new installment would pull through, as early reviewers were only allowed to play certain parts of the game and not record their own gameplay from the pre-release build. Unfortunately, the game's publisher EA had done it again, and the game had been released in a less than ideal state, mainly to do with performance. As updates are being released, addressing this issue, we can start to enjoy the experience Survivor offers in all its glory. I especially love Jedi Survivor's lightsaber combat, which feels weighty and impactful. Its predecessor was already off to a strong start, and we were not disappointed by Jedi Survivor. I don't think I've heard anyone speak negatively about the combat in this game. When I first heard there were 5 different stances in this new game, I lost my mind. We were going to see a playable version of the in-canon 7 lightsaber stances? No, we weren't. But we were going to say something similar to it. As you may have already heard, we got 5 different lightsaber types to choose from: dual wield, double bladed, single, blaster, and crossguard. Now each of these are different in look and how you use. Within the game, there are 4 different values that are tweaked for each stance to play into how you best defeat enemies. There is a stance that works for everyone, whether you are fast and bold, slow and well timed, or just prefer to keep your distance. You can face your enemies how you want. You were allowed to have access to 2 stances at any one given time. I usually reserved one spot for a stance to fight bosses and another to defeat hordes of enemies. This usually came down to 2, either dual wield or crossguard for the stronger enemies, and double bladed stance for stormtroopers. Admittedly, I would like to spend more time with the other stances, and having access to the blaster while riding creatures was a surprise to be sure, but a welcome one. I feel as though this gameplay element was implemented well, and I am wonderstruck as to how this can be improved on in later iterations in the series. I played this game on PC, using a TV as a monitor. Not my ideal setup, but it will have to do. The UI was clean, readable, and followed the themes of the last game for the most part. It was not perfect though. Not by a long shot. Remember I said I was playing on PC? Well, this UI was clearly designed for a console controller. It was awful. The instructions were unclear, changing settings felt unnatural, and I hated it. This seems to be, unfortunately, a direction the industry is headed in, as many racing games such as Battlefield 2042 and Modern Warfare 2 2022 followed the UI design principles of console menus. I hate this, and it seems backwards. It is frustrating because I don't want to have to buy a controller just to navigate around the UI when I already have a perfectly good mouse and keyboard I intend to play the game with. I couldn't help but feel the exploration could be difficult at times, but not in an intentional way. Jumping from one object to another and flying right across it without grabbing onto it happened often, and it was very annoying. I'm sure this will improve with updates, as it could be bugged or to do with stability. It just kind of took the fun out of the game sometimes when this did happen. Unfortunately, the platforming element of the game, where this is prevalent, is constant. Throughout the campaign, you would travel to a new place or planet and be tasked with finding something or someone. You embark from the Mantis, excited to advance the plot, only to have the most direct path become obstructed right in front of you. And this was annoying because you had to spend 30 to 60 minutes attempting to get to your objective, only for there to be a shortcut back to the Mantis. This drags the story on, and at times feels like your playtime is artificially extended. To better help get my point across, I decided to recreate a shortcut back to the Mantis that occurred in the campaign of the game. Of course, this was faster than what would usually happen because I've already done this before, and so I know my way around and the enemies aren't quite as difficult. And right here I pause it to prove that this game 2 months after release still isn't functioning properly. There's a new bug where BD1 won't work properly, and so I can't use his abilities to actually get past this area, and that causes issues because there's no way that I can continue through this level. So adding on to the time that it took me to get to this point, I now have to go back, restart, and then do it again. And of course this can happen in the campaign, so we're just adding on more, wasting time. I wanted to finish the story and come back later to collect everything, as half the unlockables require you to complete a section of the story to be accessible, but due to the quickest path always being impassable, you are forced down a path with collectibles you can't obtain. As stated earlier, however, exploration is rewarding, something for everybody, whether it's cosmetics, upgrades, perks, collectibles, currency, side quests, or even force echoes and tears. Also, animals good. They felt necessary, helping close the vast distances between the game's objectives or points of interest and allowed for more exploration possibilities. So yeah, good. Adding to the exploration aspect of the game is the graphics. The lighting, textures are all improved, but still confined to Unreal Engine 4, which was the same engine used to make the previous game. I reckon the best show of improvement is just looking at Cal's face between the games. I played the game without ray tracing and it still looked very pleasant. On my GTX 1080, I was able to keep above 60 FPS, making it playable, but nothing to desire, especially with today's standards. To be fair, this is getting to be an old card now, so I was happy that I could play the game considering its minimum requirements of 8GB of VRAM. Cough cough, Nvidia. I really like the story of Jedi Survivor. The themes are great. Have a look at my other video. The characters are of course the best part of the story, being able to see them grow and adapt. After all, the game is about a likable character, his struggles, triumphs, and his universe. Every character is built upon and has a natural progression in their arc, apart from Grease, who was just there to fly the crew around and comedy, and he got sad. I find it difficult to see why he bothers to help the crew. I feel as though the writers got him romantically invested in Sid just so someone would fly Cal around and therefore involve him in the story, and seeing his new arm kind of implied that his character development had happened between the two games. Merrin was in a similar boat, having made the decision to explore the galaxy. She came back to help Cal on his adventures, which turned out to be very convenient in some situations. Her relationship grew with Cal, with the blessing of many fans, and their scenes towards the end of the game didn't feel forced and only reaffirmed the basis of their original connection and understanding of each other, being survivors. Again, check out my new video once it's released. It's going to be talking a lot more about this in greater detail. As sad as it is, I liked Seer's death. It was great to see that Seer had developed understanding and confronting her fear of Vader, being able to put up a much better fight than in Fallen Order. It was very much a Jedi story. having come to terms with the fall of her apprentice to the dark side and continuing to push on. Ultimately, though, when she fought Vader, we rooted for her, but knew it could only end one way. It was clear that after Fallen Order, she had invested her time into collecting Jedi relics, having reconnected herself with the Force in the previous game. I think that the decision to let Cal go off on his own without Seer breathing down Cal's neck was appropriate, as he had been a Jedi Knight for 5 years at this point. I just realised I haven't talked about Cal yet. Cal was great in this game. I loved every moment with him. I'm sure if I tried, I could find some flaw in his story, but I don't really want to ruin it for myself. I liked how he reacted in every situation. I can easily understand the logical steps in his emotions, especially since they were manifested through story, gameplay, and mannerisms. The writers really have done well with him. I think Bo's betrayal was inevitable after the death of Dagan. I'm not sure what tipped me off, but the game didn't seem to end with the death of the apparent antagonist. The Dagan boss fight felt too easy in a way. Little did I know I was in for it. Darth Vader and Bo took many attempts to defeat. I have a confession though. I'd changed the difficulty to Padawan because I couldn't defeat Bode, but the UI was so unintuitive that I became even more frustrated. The pacing of the plot can seem kind of slow. Maybe this is because a video game is different to a movie. For example, it must be interactive between key developments in the story, otherwise it isn't a video game. As stated prior, sometimes I just wanted to continue the narrative, but first had to get through an hour's worth of gameplay which felt unreasonably out of the way when a shortcut is opened, negating your progress. Don't get me wrong, Survivor is as immersive as any other game. I just felt as though I had been robbed of my time. Despite having a large map on each world, this is a linear game. I promise that this is the last time I'll mention this. What I hate about the story is the twist film. It's a frustrating plot device. It happens in movies with basic storylines that need something to happen in the final act. Examples of this happening is the Lego Movie Part 2 and Frozen. Don't get me wrong, these movies did well, but they are aimed at a younger audience. Now, I'm not trying to gatekeep Star Wars as a product for older people, but I think of how good Fallen Order was. You followed Cal's journey of finding the holocron to restart the Jedi Order. The antagonists were made clear to you from the beginning, and their stories also impacted the final decision to destroy the holocron at the end of the game. Cal decided not to rebirth the Jedi Order because of his and Trilla's experiences. What impact did Bode have on Cal? Cal maybe a little less trusting, or maybe a little closer to the dark side. All I'm trying to say is Cal ended up in the same place he started the game in story-wise, being to allow the rebels to use Tenor Law and flourish. The plot twist can be seen as a waste of time, due to a character that you grew to know changing at the end instead of using a game's worth of development to truly enrich the climax. Two months after release, there are still glitches, bugs, performance issues. Although it has improved, we are still missing combat challenges and battle grid, which were great additions to Fallen Order, but I'm willing to hold out considering the DLC was released 6 months after Fallen Order's original launch. Now, despite what I've outlined as bad about this game, it is the characters that redeem Jedi Survivor. Really, what brought me to this game was the continuation of Cal's story and the consequences of the group's actions upon the greater Star Wars galaxy. As well as this, the combat is challenging and satisfying, and the exploration is often fun and rewarding. It really got me excited. I love Star Wars and I want it to be good and I want to enjoy it. Now, using the ratings I gave to each category, I can confirm that this game was in fact above average. I think it's fair considering this game is a lot of fun, with some to be desired. And with that, this brings us to the end of the video. I appreciate you for making it this far. If you'd like to see more, I'll be releasing another video on Jedi Survivor very soon, and hopefully I'll see you there.